It's amazing the difference in such a short time. Have finished the next collage. What if you were enough? So many eye-opening revelations and ahas. Such a weight has already been lifted. How thick this fog and darkness was. Holy cow. And feeling fresh and alive. So aware of the punishment I have been handing to myself for no good reason. And that there is another way. Had convinced myself there wasn't. What a horrible lie. Am absolutely grateful, in all capital letters, and this is only the beginning. Wow. In capital letters. We'll be online for a bit right now. The kids have a half day at school and some friends are coming for a play date, so the afternoon may be a bit noisy. Can also try to connect in the morning if it doesn't work out today. Your grace is such an incredible gift. Am so unbelievably grateful.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So now we move up to a couple months later, 3/10/13, her goodbye. Now, a couple of months ago, the most incredible things are turning around. I'm finally able to mother my children. You know, they're happier. My husband's happier. Everything is so much better. After the counseling, you know, which I had to do with, again, that you know, putting on this mask and you know, running this thing and you know, the collages can be put out there. People can see it, exactly what's there. I didn't tell her what to put on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't tell her what to put on it. It's very self-evident when one looks at them, what's going on. So here's her goodbye letter. Namaste, Swamiji. It's true, I tried to slip out the back door without being noticed. This was not an attempt to discredit you or your path, but quite the contrary. For I knew the parting words would not only be difficult to put forth, but would bring a wrath of anger in their wake. A wrath of anger for what? For what? If you're leaving, you're leaving. What is there to be angry about?
Yeah.
For the past couple of years, as the bliss of oneness wore off and the agony of glimpsing wholeness came and went, something else was persistently present, which I was too afraid to turn and to face. Afraid of what I would see. Afraid of what I would confront. Afraid of the choices I would have to make. What's that have to do with here? All her fears are coming up to choke her. Of course, as you well teach, avoidance and denial does no good, and these things only grow. When they're finally faced, they may not be what was expected and usually aren't pleasant to acknowledge, but it's only in facing them we can see them for what they are and make the choices that need making. This, Swamiji, you have taught, shared, and even shown a way towards, and I am beyond grateful for it. We'll see how great her gratitude is as we go through the letter. I was aware of what this was that needed facing. We all know on some level what we are carrying, avoiding, though maybe not the extent or complexity of it as we try our damnedest to hide from it. Many of us, if not most, seek guidance or a teacher on the path because we are in confusion, chaos, lost, and often terribly scared. Your path offered a refuge for this. Yeah, that's a horrible thing, to be given refuge when you're absolutely in fear and terror. That's a horrible thing. Speaking for myself, I cannot imagine how I would have navigated the spontaneous awakening of Kundalini without your direct one-to-one interaction. It was a blessing and brought such a relief. cannot imagine how I would have navigated. I cannot imagine. I lost my place, and it was blessing and brought such a relief, not to mention grounding and a foundation to work from. The truth was I had no idea about anything spiritual, and you took the time to not only help me understand Kundalini, but also imparted the knowledge that the greats have shared since the spoken word has been recorded. Yeah, I'm a horrible, terrible person. Though I had let go of the fear of Kundalini and slowly came to understand the transient nature of the world, and while admittedly the fear of ego death was still a struggle, there was an undercurrent of fear that was separate from these things, though constant throughout them all, and slowly grew as the years on your path wore on.
Yeah,
so here it comes. All her self-generated fears that she's going to run and play with, and then want to project it on here. Even though everything she got, the counseling was fabulous, gave a refuge, helped me to understand, brought me to balance, spoke of the words of the greats of this, throughout history. So, I understand and have surely experienced the suffering that results when a fear is accepted, believed, and feeds upon itself. And she still is. I'm well aware that the teaching you share is that this is precisely why you have a guru with direct interaction as to confront these things, see through them, and allow them to fall away or see them for what they are. As you've stated too many times to count, that this is why you insist that all be upfront and honest with you, as you cannot help what you do not know of. The problem is that this teaching and the reality of your path are in direct contradiction of one another. Because of this contradiction, the path becomes fertile ground for feeding the fears we're expected to work through with you. It's a no-win situation. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Well, no. When you're not upfront and honest, which she was not, being upfront and honest. This is what feeds the fear. 100%. What's the contradiction? The contradiction is when you're not willing to be upfront and honest. That's the contradiction.
Exactly.
I've watched over the years and have had plenty servings myself as we are seekers, are all but condemned for our ignorance. Who's condemning what? Ignorance is not knowing, not that you're ignorant, although you're being ignorant now. Now you're truly being ignorant for bringing all the lies and defamation. And your things will show exactly what was here and what was not. When I speak of the ignorance, I'm speaking that you simply don't know. That's the ignorance of not knowing, not that you are being ignorant. There's a vast difference. Now, if you're going to take a thing out of context and spin it 180 degrees away, I can't help that. I cannot help that. I bought into these judgments and teachings so fully, so completely, without abandon, that every bit of my sense of direction, truth, and sense of judgment was filtered through them. Certainly this is as it should be, given the nature of guru-disciple relationship. I had no idea what that relationship was and is meant to be. I took you at your word, as again I had no knowledge of spirituality, the path, or what is the norm in that arena. The problems were and remain that your teachings and guidance are not simply a tool by which the ego is broken, but a subtle form of control and abuse, to the point the seeker fears not only their own choices and decisions completely, but simultaneously fears the wrath of their very teacher. Now that's the biggest load of nonsense. When you hide things and you're not honest, these fears grow.
Right.
That's what happens. Up to this point, everything's been fabulous. It's all wonderful. You get to the point of the fears and her internal fears and all the stuff she's been carrying, and what is it? She hasn't been honest with it. She wasn't honest with it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know about any of this until up to this point, and this has been after years.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
None of it was brought forward until after years.
Mm-hmm.
Surely many teachers have and do use tactics in which to break down the ego. The difference lies in the foundation, approach, and atmosphere in which it's done. So her thing was, if you hear something you don't like, it's abuse. That's abuse. If it's not feeding ego, then it's abuse. There's a great difference between an abusive situation and one you have an aversion to. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And people want to confuse a path that is there, and it's tough because you deal in reality, but when somebody is covering up the reality, not being open, and this is what the counseling brought forward,
Mm-hmm.
that she had a big mask that she was wearing and playing with because she didn't want anybody to see she was so bankrupt inside. That's her fear. And that's why all the threats now, that's why all this drama, doing everything to discredit, because if anything comes out, people will see what she is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It was upon thinking of the upcoming birthday celebration and realizing that I would not be able to attend, I was honestly shocked and surprised to find out I was relieved. In looking at this, I could no longer deny reason and logic and my own judgment and conscience. I was suddenly faced with and could no longer turn from the deep questions, concerns, and very real fears I have about your teaching style and your path. Yet all it did was brought her balance, took her out of the fears that she had concerning Kundalini, etc., helped her with the counseling, the best thing that's ever happened. I can read you the things where she said everybody should have the counseling, and yet now we got the flip side going. Oh my God, I'm terrified, I'm this, I'm that. I was suddenly faced and could no longer turn from the deep questions concerned very real fears I have about your teaching style and your path. I also fully understood I could not approach you with these. There you have it. She never approached me with any of it. That's part of the path. If you have a concern, if you have something, then you come, you bring it, we talk about it. As I have seen and well aware of how these projections are handled and reprimanded. So she's already got it made up in her mind what's going to be said. Already got it made up. Okay? I've seen for years as people run around frantically, myself being a willing participant to make your birthday or whatever the occasion or non-occasion may be as perfect as possible for you. Frantic. How much work did she ever do when she came?
Nothing.
Nothing.
And she didn't have anything to do before she got here as well.
She did nothing. So what's this running around frantic that she's doing? She didn't participate. She shows up late for every event. She shows up late. So again, here you have that the mind is starting to go on this bender. This is well and good as a great teacher should be honored and respected, but the undercurrent of these preparations and the general behavior isn't respected, it's fear. Really? Everybody's in fear? Were you in fear?
No.
Are you in fear?
No.
Was Sachi in fear?
No. You actually enjoy it, really. It's the most enjoyable thing.
This is her projection that everybody's in fear. Oh my God, they're all in fear. She doesn't show up until late, and we're all in fear. It's a fear of not pleasing you, of hearing how we've all fallen short, how you hate being a guru, how ungrateful, selfish, and deplorable we all are. And we eat it up, swallow it whole. And I'll give you that retreats or even running an online group of seekers is not easy. A room or group full of 30 active Kundalinis is nothing short of a wild carnival ride. And there's the drama, always drama. But if I were to be totally honest, the teacher here is often more dramatic in her demands, disdain, and contempt than many seekers themselves. I'm both amazed and saddened to have to say that. So deeply I can't convey the depth of it.
Jeez.
In realizing not only my true feelings, what was expressed in the beginning of the letter was not the true feelings. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. I'm so grateful. It's the most wonderful thing you gave. And, I came in not knowing anything, and you've given a refuge. You've given all these things. But now, all of a sudden, the worm turns. I also realized I heard all this before, dozens and dozens of times. So many times that I've honestly forgotten the names and faces of those who said them. But more importantly, I defended you, your path, and your style vehemently. Really? When? I spoke up and condemned others for being so rude and disrespectful. I've never seen anybody as disrespectful as she is.
That's correct.
And to be fair, some were downright off target and had no valid argument. Seeing this, I also realized much of what I'm not comfortable with and never have been, but have always been too afraid to say, has been said before. It wasn't heard, of course, as it was quickly justified with crazy wisdom or off-balance seekers, but nonetheless it's been said. However, the worst for me is the fear that subtly and often not so subtly fed to all those here, fear of the path without a guru, fear of losing guru's grace, fear of not making it to liberation, fear of getting lost and not found, fear of not getting a food order right, fear of not acknowledging guru correctly, fear of saying that was mean, fear of being belittled or humiliated, fear. Though this fear isn't fed as fear, it's cloaked in teachings or crazy wisdoms or some backwards form of compassion held by a person with great responsibility for those coming under them. So what's that have to do with here? Fear of the path without a guru, fear of this. What's that have to do with crazy wisdom of a teacher? That's her own stuff.
Right.
It's her own drama. It has nothing to do with what's here. It's coming from her.
Mm-hmm.
You've shown by example how to stand up for what isn't right. I honor that. Where is she honoring that? She has not honored it at all. And I'm standing up again by example for what's not right. I'm putting your crap out here. You've opened the door to that. By defaming me, by putting everything, all of these lies out on the net, I have a right to set the record straight and let them hear your last two letters. Let them hear it. Let them hear how wonderful the counseling was, and let them hear really what you said when you left and how you didn't come out. You didn't speak about it. You weren't being honest. You withheld everything. I can't help you if you don't voice it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help you if you're going to wear a mask and play a game to make yourself look good. I can't help that. And that's what she was so afraid of being outed. Because the experiences she was saying she was having couldn't be had with the counseling that took place. What you saw was there. Those two cannot go together.
Right, right.
You teach to question our beliefs, our identities, what binds us and burdens us, to question the foundations of the limited truths we have built, to stand up to non-truth or questionable immoral behavior. I know that, isn't that terrible? And as I'm standing up now, because what she is doing is absolutely immoral.
Right.
To sit here and say, I have an eating disorder, I was just stuffing myself to death, all of this nonsense, all of the crap she's saying, like she's got such great, knowledge that nobody knows. I've been open about everything. No, I had an operation because I had diabetes too. I did not have an eating disorder. If I had a freaking eating disorder like you want to continue to put out on the net that I had, I would be 300 pounds now.
Correct.
Because that operation does not work for people that have that type of eating disorder. What they do is stretch their stomach out immediately and gain the weight all back.
Right.
So this idea that she's so privy to something that nobody else knows, that's the biggest load of horse manure around. She's not privy. So none are allowed to question you, your teachings, or the way in which you conduct yourself. That's, again, a load of nonsense. I've had people contact me and we've talked about things. So again, nonsense. The depth of this springs forth as you state concerns about your path, your behavior, or merely our skewed projections put on you, or that guru knows best and the rest of us are ignorant. This renders the seeker paralyzed because they can no longer trust their own questioning, judgment, and reasoning, thus crippling them in the very process they are to use if they are to walk a path or live a life at all. It's a trap and a dangerous one, as the seekers are conditioned to believe not only their ability to judge anything fundamentally flawed, but your word is the final one. And they become solely reliant upon you and your teachings by which to view life. Well, that's nonsense. There is no belief system put out here. The belief is that you have to question yourself. You have to go within. You have to sit with whatever's coming up. So what kind of belief system is that? To question yourself, to sit with what's coming up?
Right, right.
If there were such a flawed belief system in place, that counseling would never work because there would be nothing seen to be able to give any kind of correct guidance in it.
Right.
That's not the true path. It's control, a deceptive, cunning control clouded in guru's clothing. But the saddest of all, that you can't, no matter how many times it's said and put forth, see it. You're strangely blind to it all. I was blind or not willing to see for a very long time, too. I so wanted to believe. So wanted to believe. But I can't close my eyes any longer. Close your eyes to what? Again, she stated when she came in, she was in fear, she was in, all these things, and she had a refuge here. I did everything, spoke the wisdom of the sages throughout history. And then she starts getting into her fears and her drama, and you see how this letter is spinning out of control as we go.
Right.
I realize all too well this will be clothed in assertions of ego, mind spin, not completed, rerouted, ignorant, and lost, closer to Guru's grace. I could not get pretty creative. And all of this started spinning out of control when? When the video was put up when a sage is not a sage. When you're lying about your experiences and you're saying it's something other than it is, then you are not a sage. You have never been a sage. That's when it started.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, if it's not rerouted, her mind was never gone. Her mind has been spinning the whole time, as is evidenced by this. I had these inner fears. I had this stuff going on, and I could never voice it. She was not honest with it.
No stillness in that.
There's no stillness in there.
No.
So she played the game, said what the experience is supposed to be, and was falsely, accepted the title of sage.
Oh,
and when it came out that, the counseling, that her whole thing is about creating this false facade. A false facade, a false face. So nobody knows what's the bankrupt under there. Then 100%. It's all been a lie. It's been a construct. She's been playing a game. And the minute she wasn't getting the accolades from everybody, that's when it started to get, then, you're abusive.
And one of her accusations is that you don't know how to recognize a sage, of course, because you recognized her to be a sage, and you did.
No, I recognized her to be a sage because she's telling me the experiences. I'm asking, what are the experiences? She'd been around enough to know this is what the experiences are, so that's what she said.
Right.
So she lied.
Right.
100% she lied.
Right. And you tell her she's a sage, and then she says, well, you don't know how to recognize one. Well, what can you do? That's what she said.
You recognize it. If I had been around her, if she had lived around here, I would have seen very rapidly she's not where she says she is.
Right.
But that's why she distances herself. That's why she wasn't around.
Right.
That's why, this nonsense that she wasn't around very often. To keep that illusion and that facade in place. She said you've got so many ways to deflect any criticism, all centered around the cover of Guru, that you perfectly positioned yourself to conveniently avoid any and all negative feedback. I'm sure this makes painfully obvious while it's time for me to go. And so this was my response to her. Thank you for your letter. You're wished well, but your points, while seemingly valid to you, are again the holding, and to begin being willing to work through the running of your life on fear and not pleasing will keep a stranglehold on you. And that's what her counseling was about. Fear, and she's got to be pleasing everybody in order for them to like her. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the fear that somebody's going to see what's really under there. Therefore, I need to look good on the surface. Everything needs to look good on the surface so nobody looks any deeper. Unfortunately, I had a premonition of something of the sort taking place with you, but was not allowed to intervene or speak during the event. It woke me up and shook me to the core. I'm just glad it's not as dire as what it was felt and seen at the time. But it is. It's proven to be that dire with her actions of continuing to go out and getting so ugly with defamation and all of these things. What I saw at that time that woke me up and shook me to the core is now being proven out.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. And it was a horrible thing to see. It was a horrible thing. Nobody should have to see it. I'm truly hoping you find your way. Can only say it was a darkness and was following you and you closed the door. I wanted to yell out, to call you, to look behind you, but the voice wouldn't come out and I felt helpless to aid you. Now I know why. When these types of things are harbored and have been already closed, the door you've closed. When these types of things are harbored and have been brewing in your mind, you have effectively already closed the door on hearing anything, and these types of choices I cannot interfere with. The teaching style here was given to you all up front. This is why people are given the pointing to read The Dangerous Friend, as am not now or never will be the warm, pushy, new agey type of teacher. You may not like this, but it's a very valid style and it's not going to change.
Tough love that everybody understands that.
They come in here. That's part of this path. But that's not what you want. So when you get the tough love, then all of a sudden you're abusive. Because it's not, she doesn't want to hear that. That's not abuse.
People understand. Tough love is compassion. They understand that. People.
No, some
do.
Don't understand.
Right, some do.
It was seen in your previous times of coming to retreats, etc. You were never fully present. When you want to keep yourself private and hold back, and this was in place from day one, then there was never a willingness to be truly fully open. Did you ever once invite me to your home when I was in town? The answer is a clear no. Ask yourself why. Again, you were guarding your domain, and the mirror you need to see is to read back your mail, and the control had to be on your side always. It was never here. What were you ever forced to do? I tried to aid you, your mother, your sister, your family, and you really say you feared me? You wanted to go off and be a teacher, and found no matter how sweet you were that it wasn't what you thought you would get back. The clear fact is you were brewing and harboring this ugliness and had never been honest in this. And this is what happens when one is harboring these types of feelings for a long time and not coming forward or being honest nor transparent at the time. You wanted to take from here. Make account after account of how you were aided and all the experiences gained, and yet you continue to harbor these dark feelings of not liking the way the teaching is being done. They weren't up to your standard, as clearly you know a better way. And I'm sorry, but that's clearly an egotistical stance. So really, you should have left long, long ago, rather than taking from here and playing some game and harboring these resentments and now making these assertions. That would have been the honorable way. Again, this teaching style isn't for everyone, and have made no bones about it. One has to be willing to expose themselves and not hold back. You can't take on one hand and mutter under the breath and resentment on the other and expect to have any long-lasting results of attainments. As to hold these types of feelings against your teacher is not honoring what's being given. It's an ugliness that will eventually come to light, and that darkness cannot remain hidden. As you can see, it grated on you until you left. It grew until it consumed you, and there was nothing more that could be given from here as you effectively shut the door. That door was in the process of shutting for a long time by your own hand. You're wished well, but I'm making no apologies for not being a new age wishy-washy teacher. If people want some watered-down teaching, they're welcome to it, with all the group hugs they want. But I'm here to aid in cutting through. This is the way it has been and how it will remain. Om Shanti.
Right, very good.
So we go on to the next letter.
Okay.
Yeah. Namaste, dearest Guru. Thank you for the apologies and for relating your experiences. That's what I said to her. Thank you for your apologies and relating your experiences. First, to begin my apologies, I've come to see everything I threw at you was for me. And it's still for her. All the attempts to trash here, all the attempts at defamation, all of that is still for her.
Mm-hmm.
She says, and that is such a great blessing to come upon. I cannot adequately describe the depths of it. Upon leaving you, the darkness you spoke of descended and descended hard. This letter was not made privy on the groups, and you'll understand why as we get into it.
Okay.
Shortly after, maybe only 1 or 2 nights leaving you, I found myself curled up in a fetal position on the office floor, overcome with a sadness, fear, ickiness so deep I was absolutely convinced I would not possibly make it through the night. And what was she telling everybody on the site? I'm in bliss, I'm so happy I'm gone, everything's fabulous, I'm wonderful. No, this is what she said. This is what was really going on. So all these letters that she sent everybody, that she's so blissful and so wonderful and it's great that she left, that wasn't the reality. Again, that was that facade that she loves to put out. Just like the facade of I was so much of the inner circle and I've got all this dirt on everybody. I know things that nobody else knows. It's a lie. It's a lie. So let's continue to look at this, what she sent. I saw no way which to survive that darkness without either dying or losing my mind, but death on all levels felt as palpable as the ground I was sobbing on. I obviously did make it through, but I now see it was the strength of something far greater, for no man could withstand that alone. In that darkness, I reached out for the only thing I had left, as I'd thrown everything else away, God or source or creator or that which is. It was like falling into grace. I simply have no better way to describe it. And it all began unraveling in such an amazingly profound and horribly wonderful ways from there. Right before I left your group, perhaps a week or 2, I can't remember now, I had a dream in which these 2 powerful magnets, though they weren't magnets, but a substance made up of something that was like magnets, were racing towards each other at lightning speeds, and I knew that when they met and merged, there would be an explosion so fierce nothing would survive. I didn't know now what that meant at the time, and in the dream I covered my eyes from it because it terrified me. But now I understand, for I've come to see that all that took place was such a brilliant setup, nobody would believe it unless they lived and experienced it. And then she's laughing. And what took place for me was the only way I would have ever gone into myself. I would never, not ever dived in had it not been for what happened. So now I see that the smaller magnet is the mind and the more powerful magnet is that. And in the explosion or merging or union or eradication of the mind, all becomes that and nothing survives save that. And she's laughing. Brilliant. I've also come to see that crazy wisdom is needed when you're dealing with craziness. And she's laughing. And I was crazy. So, of course, nothing short of crazy wisdom would ever work. And she's laughing again. It's the old adage that nothing short of a lion can tame the wild elephant. This dearest teacher, you provided and provided well. I bow down to your grace, the grace of all grace. I am in awe.
Oh, my God.
And look what she's doing. So much has happened in such a short time. I fear I'd never have time to write it all down or describe it. Once the focus was within, things have moved at such lightning speeds, it's amazing. I could even keep up or follow along. She's laughing again. It felt like Alice in Wonderland falling down the rabbit hole, and she's laughing again. I'd like to share another dream I had, not long after that dark night in the office. For the record, this dream was as real at the time as it was I had the room I am sitting in. But of course it would be, for that is seeing is the mind or universe or manifestation or whatever you want to call this world and all that lies within it, both seen and unseen, granted filtered through a mind or a me. So anyway, in this dream I find issues of abuse playing out in my house, which I've come to see. My house in sleeping dreams is merely an image of myself and all I hold within myself, and simultaneously fear and desire I have for it. Suddenly, you entered the room and I'm enraged. Now watch how she goes from, oh, dearest teacher, you're the most fabulous and crazy wisdom and it brought me through this and, you know. This is dark. Actually, beyond enraged. It was an anger so deep, I swear it would make grown men die if they were to encounter it. Lovely. And I chase you out of my house into the world, but it's so dark, I can't see a thing. I can sense and hear you all around me, but I can't find you. I try looking for the light I assume is within you, but I can't find it. And as I chase you, I start hearing very real growls, howls, cries, and screams like sounds from the bowels of hell. And they're cursing you and screaming and saying such ugly and profane things. But I chase you nonetheless, and soon you are in my car, and I'm further enraged. And you drive it back to my house. And I run in my house to find you standing there quietly, not saying a word. Before you know it, demons and devils have filled the room and are howling and growling, and I am the loudest of all. Yeah. As I look down and realize that I am the most grotesque demon you would ever see. And it scared me. But that didn't stop me. It couldn't. For this darkness was driving me and consuming everything. Suddenly I began to tear you apart. I had huge, horrible teeth and sharp claws, and I was devouring you, ripping you to bits and eating you. Except you kept reappearing. I couldn't destroy you. You wouldn't go away. In capital letters. So enraged and determined to destroy you, I realized that you would be hiding in God, and I would need to go within God to find and destroy you there. And as I realized this, the brightest of all lights burst open, and I walked into it. But the closer I got, the demon and darkness fell behind me or melted away into that darkness, for it could not enter here. The words, "Get me behind me, Satan," came, and I awoke into this waking dream, and she's laughing. It was your grace, the only grace, that led me into myself, drove me both myself literally and figuratively, and now my cup runs over. But what's she done? She's back in that demonic spin, doing everything she can to discredit,
Defame,
to defame,
harass, everything.
harass.
Horrible.
This is why I didn't put this out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's nasty. It's negative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what she's being. This is what she doesn't want to come to light. She wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
Since coming to see why it happened, how it happened, the brilliance of the happening, I've also come to see what it was in me that drove it. Another dream, I found the deepest part of me, the one that led me on all those goose hunts and dizzying rides. I'm standing in the basement. One aspect of me is a girl, innocent and pure. The other aspect of me is a boy. Granted, I had a whole world inside, encapsulated by a mind. All aspects of that me, indeed a legion. Mean and abusive. A legion is in her, mean and abusive.
Jesus.
The boy is holding the girl against a wall and is molesting and abusing her. This is her. She's doing this to herself. With a knife to her throat, and he says, "Don't tell anyone about this, because if you do, I'll tell them you enjoy it." And that's exactly what was happening. I was both my own abuser and the abused. I was the master and the servant. I was the hunter and the prey. I was the victim and the perpetrator. I was the thief and the policeman. And I've come to see there was an aspect of me that enjoyed that abuse, which I gave myself, because it validated the fact I was abusing myself. It was a dizzying circle. And she's laughing. It was also that stark realization that I got something out of that abuse I gave to myself, otherwise I wouldn't have continued it. So who's abusing who? All of her fantasy about the abuse here comes out of her own sick mind. There he is, in black and white.
It's unbelievable. Very complicated.
So when looking for what the fulfillment or lure was, I realized it was to feel horrible. How sick is that? And she's laughing. So it was that I want to be better, but I'm not good enough. But I want to be better, but I'm not good enough. But I want to be better, but I'm not good enough. And on and on and on and on. What really was finding ways not to be good enough so I could validate the hell driving force that I wasn't good enough. Crazy, literally crazy, and she's laughing again. So here I am, in a depth so indescribable, well, I needn't tell you. And I come to say, teacher, you are that, and thank you for your compassionate grace, the only grace. And I bow to your presence. I needed to share this to honor what you gave, to say that the teachings of the masters have come alive.
Oh my God.
I am that, in Guru, with Guru, as all. Humble bows of, oh, heart of hearts and light of all lights, your grace has set me free.
Right. Right.
That's her last letter. And then she writes the cease and desist and starts sending all that crap.
Right.
I told her, stop contacting me and stop. This is harassment. She continued to contact.
Mm-hmm.
Then she's starting all the defamation stuff. I think she really hopes that somebody chases her and abuses her. And there's no abuse here. We're not going to do it.
Very, very
But
complicated.
This was the last letter that she sent, and this is why it was not put out, but it is now being put out, because it tells 100% what she's doing and why she's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
100% what she's doing and why she is doing it. Let those who have ears to hear, hear, and those who have eyes to see, see. And its ugliness that you can't even imagine